I'm Claire Edwards, and you're listening to Authentic Leadership, a series of conversations, insights, and inspirations with leaders who are real, raw, and authentic. Today, I bring you a conversation on what I believe is an underutilised leadership attribute, and that's intuition. And my guest in conversation on this topic is Raf Seymus of Stellar Labs in Belgium. Our conversation begins with Raf sharing how he went from potential Olympic fencer to starting his career in the commercial sector of shipping, and then the social sector of working with justice-involved youth, and the role that intuition took in guiding his career. Enjoy. I was introduced to Raf through an associate and good friend, Stella Collins of Stellar Learning. And Stella has teamed up with Raf to form Stellar Labs, the learning scientists. Yeah, you can count all the Stellas. And Stellar Labs is an innovative startup providing brain-friendly training for professionals to make them future-proof in Industry 4.0. So look, I'm curious already. I met up with Raf a few weeks ago, and a theme in his career in our conversation that kept popping up was that of intuition. So today we're in conversation for the intuitive leader. Raf, welcome to Authentic Leadership.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you on the podcast, believe you me. So when we chatted a few weeks ago, you shared that your career path had been quite varied. And so I'd love to start with you sharing with us sort of how you've carved out this varied career path, and maybe what have been some of the major decisions that you made along the way.
Yes, I had indeed a special career, let's say, and a career track. When I was 18 years old and finishing high school, I didn't feel like continuing my studies, and I was in sports at the time. I did fencing, and I was pre-selected for the Olympic Games in Seoul in '88. And at that time, I still had to do my military service. So I did my military service in Belgium with the intention to train more and to prepare for the Olympics. But then I got injured, and so my plan was totally gone, basically. And then I had to find a job, and I live in Antwerp, and there's a very big port here. So I started my career as a shipping agent, taking care of all the logistics in a business context, of course, for the ships who come in to the port and has to charge or discharge. So the whole logistic process had to be taken care of, and it was really a good schooling years for me, because I learned a lot as a young guy. I was only 19 at the time, and I did this job for about 5-6 years, and it gave me the blueprint for the rest of my career, like working fast and delivering quality work and so on, and working hard as well. But then I got, bored of it is a lot to say, but I didn't saw myself doing that for the rest of my life. And at the time, I also didn't know what I wanted to do. So I decided to go back to school, and I went to university and studied educational sciences, because I knew I wanted to work with people. But that was all I knew at the time. I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go, but I knew that I wanted to work with people, and for getting the opportunity to work with people, you need a degree. So I went to university, combining it with my work, and I really liked the studies I did, and I ended up working in the social sector for I think 7 or 8 years. I worked with juvenile delinquents mostly, or young people who had a very tough time at home. And I guided them towards independent living. So I coached them basically through independent living, helped them with finding a job, going back to school, and try to solve the problems with their families or with themselves. And I really enjoyed it. But then again, after, let's say 7 or 8 years, I felt like, this is not exactly what I want to continue doing. But I didn't have a clue about what was coming next. But I knew this wasn't what I wanted to continue to do. So I went looking for another job. I knew that I loved working with people. And then through my network, I ended up in an HR function within the IT sector. I didn't know anything about IT, but I took the challenge because it felt like this was the right thing to do. And then the people in this company said, but yeah, it's not a big problem that you don't know yet a lot about IT, because you don't have to become an ITer. You just have to select and guide people within the IT sector, and you will learn the business from doing it. And that's how I ended up in the IT sector, which I found a very interesting sector. I really liked it because it's very fast-paced, a lot of change, new technologies. It was something that I discovered and found out that I really, really liked. And that combined with my talent of guiding people and coaching and helping people, it was a really good match, because in this IT sector, I found the same drive that I had within the shipping sector. Like, it's a fast-moving sector and very dynamic, and time is on the matter, and there are targets, and it's goal-oriented, and you can see results, which was much less the case in the social sector, because it's a much longer-term relationship, and you don't see the results very often of your work. So basically, I kind of used my intuition and my emotions to kind of steer me through my career. And I had some bad experience, but on the whole, I think it was a very good way for me to go like this. But I also think that I lost a lot of time because I wasn't coached at the time. It was not so common to have a coach in the 90s. So I think with coaching, I could add a lot of advantages for the young people who started at the company I was working for, by guiding them and helping them to become more aware of their talents and what they like to do. So we set up a process of coaching and training to help young graduates or young professionals with the first experience in the business. And later on, that became the business model that I used to start my own company later on.
Fantastic. It's really interesting listening to you. It sounds like, even though it wasn't so much deliberate career moves, because there was this pattern of you were in there a certain amount of time and you knew that it was what you didn't want to do anymore. But by the varied nature of what you're doing, I see a series of building blocks that you're just building one on top of the other in terms of your skills, your qualities, your attributes, and with the HR function in the IT company, because typically HR is, I suppose, often more sort of procedure policy based. Was coaching a part of that role when you joined, or did you create the coaching element of that role?
Good question. It was not really already. It was, the company I worked for, they understood already the value of coaching, but it was more like not very professional and not very structured. And I brought in the knowledge and the experience that I had from the social sector, and the programs that we set up for these young people. I kind of implemented it within the IT sector. And of course, I had to adapt it to another target group and so on. But I kind of introduced it and combined it with training, because you have coaching, but on the other hand, people also need to develop skills and more competences.
Yeah.
And this combination really worked well. And once we had this program structured, the company grew very fast after that. And then I saw that because of that, I also understood that this approach would be a business model in itself. And later on, it helped me to develop my own company, to start my own company.
Yeah. And it's funny, there's something that I picked up on your LinkedIn profile, and it's the testimonials and the recommendations people make about you and your coaching. And the word empathic keeps coming up in these recommendations from you. And I'm wondering, was that sort of that focus on empathic coaching, was that born out of the work that you did in the social sector? And how did you then bring it into the world of IT? Where were there some maybe similarities of threads working with young people?
Yeah, I think first of all, to be a good coach, it's not about sharing your experiences, because that's more mentoring, in my opinion. It's more about helping people develop more self-awareness by facilitating self-reflection. And in my opinion, the purpose of coaching is always to develop more self-awareness, to help people see their blind spots, detect their talents and start using them more. And often, what is often the case, I've noticed in the IT sector, is that, well, not only in the IT sector, but in general, that people are not always aware of their real talents because they're so obvious for them and so natural that they're not aware of it. And so they don't use them actively or not enough actively. But when you bring that under the attention by asking the right questions in a coaching session, people become more aware of that and can actively and can start actively using them and developing them more consciously, which is, in my opinion, a very big advantage. And in my opinion, it's also the purpose of coaching, to help people becoming more self-aware and using their talents in a more conscious and in a more structured way, I would say.
Absolutely. And I would think that going back to your days of working in the social sector with young juvenile delinquents, that must have been a hard thing for them to see, accept, embrace the fact that they did have strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And I think empathy is one of the most important things for making a connection with people. If you cannot understand what people are going through, if you cannot feel partly what have been going through, and if you can't feel any compassion for that, then it's very difficult to get a connection. So I think I've learned that, or I developed it during my work in the social sector with these people. Otherwise, you cannot work with them if they don't trust you, and trust is developed based on empathy, in my opinion. It's impossible to make them make steps and grow as a person.
Yeah, very much so. It was actually when I was working for SAP, and I was really struggling with the I suppose the nature of the business, the amount of money that was changing hands, and it just seemed all a bit crazy at the time. It was probably at the height of their business success in the early 90s, and I ended up volunteering for a young person's rehabilitation center. It was just a little house down the road from me. And my goodness, it helped me so much. It helped me to get balance from this crazy business world of SAP. But it helped me develop empathy as well. So I absolutely hear you there, Raf. So moving on from that, as I said in the opening, that the name of the podcast is The Intuitive Leader. And it sounds like that many of the decisions that you've made to carve out the career that you have been those intuitive decisions, because there's a pattern of you sharing with me, I didn't know what I wanted, but then you made those decisions. So, and I'm equally as passionate about intuition as I suppose as a leadership trait and quality. So, intuition, I think, means different things for different people. What does it mean for you, Raf?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I looked it up on Google. Like, what is it actually? And I think the definition is quite right. It's the ability to understand something instinctively without the need for conscious reasoning. So, in my opinion, it's something that you know without having the proof for that, or without having the reasoning behind it. It's something that you feel, and it's also my experience that intuition can be developed. And it's based on all your experience, all the knowledge that you gathered by, whatever you've been doing, following training, going on holidays, talking with people, reading books, and so on. And it's all there piled up or stored in your subconsciousness. But it's talking to you, it's speaking to you, but you have to listen to it. And it's not very easy to listen to it, because you get a lot of distortion from a lot of different sources. So you really need to take the time for it. And on the other hand, also your intuition, sometimes it can be very strong when you have to take a certain decision, like you really know what to do. But sometimes it's also not very clear, and it goes left and right and so on. So then, in my opinion, you should balance it with getting more information. It can be from data. It can also be from talking to more experienced people. It can be from reading books and so on, until this inner voice becomes more clear and stronger. But it can take time. And I'd rather don't take decisions when I don't have the feeling that it's right yet. And then I wait, and I will continue to find other sources of information, whatever they may be, until this inner voice says, yes, it's fine. It's okay to go. It's the right decision. And I would advise not to take decisions when you don't feel it. You don't feel that it's right.
Yeah.
And especially when you have this feeling like, I don't know, I'm not sure, then just try to gather more information, in my opinion. And until this voice says, okay, this is the way to go.
There's a couple of really interesting things that you said there. I think the first one, going back, was around reflection. And I think for us to be more aware of the power of our intuition, it's to slow down our thinking, to take time to reflect, to take time, as you say, to listen to that inner voice, or however it presents itself. And then that's now got me curious, because you're saying that there are times when it's very strong in your intuition, and there's times when you hold back, and you will balance that out with getting more information and those more sort of traditional sources. So, and forgive me if I'm putting you on the spot here, because it wasn't a question that I put in the questions. But if you had, I was going to say, if you had to teach me, but how do you know what's happening for you when you get a really strong sense that intuitively it's the right thing to do? Help me understand.
Very, very good question. I need to reflect a little bit upon that, so give me a few seconds.
Absolutely.
First of all, like you said, it takes time. And you need to take some distance from it. So when you're fully occupied and fully focused on what you're doing, it's very hard, I think, to hear the voice or to hear your intuition. And usually it can happen when you go for a walk, or you go biking, or you're in the shower, or doing something else, and not being focused. For me, it happens a lot in the car when I'm driving and I have some music on. Yeah, that's an ideal way for me for reflecting and not doing anything, but you're kind of focused on the road, but not too much, because it became a habit. So your brain has the opportunity to kind of check, and has the time also to speak. Your unconscious can speak at that time. But sometimes it's like I said, more clear than other times, and there's no one way of knowing, like, is this right or not? But it's just a feeling that is, gut feeling, that some people might say. And I do feel it in my plexus solaris, when that becomes more calm, and I don't have this kind of aching feeling. And then it also becomes clear in my head what the decision should be. And that gives a lot of energy. And it also, it releases energy, because you have this feeling and you know what to do. And then you also have the energy to go into action and to do it. Yeah. But from having this idea to develop it in the real world, let's say, to bring it on Earth, it can still change, and it can still pivot from left to right. So it's not because you have an idea that this will be the end of the story. It will develop over time. It will develop and change because of influences from other things. But that's fine, as long as you know that this is the direction. I see intuition as a starting point, not as the end. And then the rest is kind of bringing it to life, let's say.
Yeah. And just picking up on what you were saying, what you've just said about bringing it to life. There's looking at sort of the literature and the themes around sort of modern day 21st century leadership. Intuition is playing a bigger and bigger role as a leadership assessment tool that I'm involved in, called the I4, and one of those I's is intuition. And I'm just sort of thinking back to your days with the shipping company, where maybe if you'd said to your boss, look, I don't have any data, I don't have any information, I just have a gut feel that this is the right way to go. Would your boss have accepted that and just let you run with it? Or I suppose my question is around how we allow, enable, encourage, and facilitate intuition as a real core part of a business's culture.
Yeah, very good question, and it's also not an easy one, because I think when I was in my 20s and I would have gone to my boss and say, listen, I have this gut feeling that we should go this way. I guess he would have told me like, yeah, and why do you think like that? And can you give me some proof of that? And which I would also do when I'm a company owner. I would do the same thing. I would not just go with the hunch of people in the company. I would ask for more information. But then again, we're in very special times now within this COVID period, and there's a lot of change going on. Not only because of COVID, but also because of Industry 4.0. And we'll come to that later. Because I think now that intuition, because of the situation, is becoming more important, because we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months or a year. So there are less objective reasons to steer on. So you need to go back inside and try to use that more, I think, as a way for making decisions. Yeah, the more uncertainty there is in business, the more you need your intuition, because it's not business as usual anymore.
So you've recently, started up a new business. How are you working with your people? Because I'm assuming everybody's working sort of virtually now anyway. What are you seeing in terms of the use of intuition with your people, and how you're guiding the business through this huge period of uncertainty?
Yeah, I think because of the changes I already have went through in my life, changing of different sectors of jobs and so on, I think I'm maybe better equipped than younger people, for instance, because I have more experience. When I look at Stella, my co-founder, she also has done a lot of different experience. She lived in different countries, so she's also more used to change and to adapting to new situations. But I'm also aware that not all people have this ability already fully developed, let's say. Yeah, I don't feel bad about this situation. And change is inherent in life. And when you're adaptable and resilient to that, I think it's exciting also to go through these changes. But I'm also aware that it's kind of demanding for a lot of people. But to me, it's kind of a more natural situation, because I went through so many changes in the last 20 years, let's say, that for me, it's just like, okay, another change. I know what's going to happen. I know what I have to do. I have to listen to my intuition and check information and so on, and then continue. And when I look at the past 6-7 months that we're in business with Stellar Labs, well, we have gone through tremendous changes already, but we're still very positive, and these changes also always have a certain opportunity within it, and it's a matter to seize the opportunity and to see it and to be able to pivot. And I also know that the bigger the company is, the more difficult it is to go through change. But we're still quite small. We're working with 6 people for the moment, 3 in Belgium and 3 in the UK. But the bigger the company will become, it will also become more difficult. But now we're very agile, to use the important A word, and I also think we're quite adaptable, and we're we do like changes because we see the progress, we see the steps we take, and they're the right steps for the moment. And when we don't take the right steps, then we have to go back and start over again. But that's life. That's part of doing business. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I absolutely agree with you. I think that, the old saying that necessity is the mother of invention. I think that we've been sort of catapulted into the future of work. It's just what was going to come anyway has been accelerated. And actually linking that back into your core business, because your core business is around, brain-friendly learning, online learning, virtual learning. How do you see this moving forwards? I mean, goodness knows when we're going to see face-to-face training again. So how have you been able to, I suppose, capitalize on this opportunity and be innovative in the future of the services that you provide?
Yeah. Well, Stellar Labs has the idea for the start of Stellar Labs was already that learning within a professional context was not very effective before. We know that the learning process is, well, we know that learning is not just an event, it's a process which requires a lot of repetition and practice and so on. But what we saw mostly in the business world is that training is just an event of 1 day or 2 days or maybe 5 days. And then afterwards it's finished. And then they expect you to transfer all the skills and the knowledge that you learned during these days to the work floor, which is not happening or happening in a very, very low percentage. And when we look at Industry 4.0 and the skills that are needed there, and the shortage which is occurring, there are many studies from, for instance, World Economic Forum and Korn Ferry and others, stating that by 2030 we will have a global deficit of about 85 million highly skilled technical people to deal with all these technological changes and to implement them in companies. So looking at that, at the demographics, we're going to have a huge problem if we don't have an effective learning method in place. And we don't, and we will have to upskill and reskill our people almost on a constant basis to keep up with the technological inventions. So that was already the starting point of Stellar Labs.
Sorry, I was just thinking this is probably a really good time for you to enlighten us all on what Industry 4.0 is and also the learning revolution.
Let me start by talking a little bit about Industry 4.0. Well, we've created a lot of computing power in the past 10, 15 years. On top of that, we have tons of data. And those two things have facilitated, let's say, AI, robotics, IoT, and so on. And will bring us huge possibilities for business to automate things, to make them better, more performant, better customer experience, and so on. But also these technological inventions will ask for different skills, different knowledge, different competences. And that poses a really big problem. Like I said, this shortage of highly skilled talent, to give you an idea, in Belgium, they expect a shortage of about 600,000 people by 2030 and globally 85 million. So we're not going to be able to solve that by hiring people because they won't be there. There won't be enough people there. So what we'll have to do is to help the people that we have in our companies, to train them, to upskill them all the time during the course of their career. So we don't have to fire them when their skills are not mapping anymore or matching anymore with the needs of the company. And with my previous company, we were upskilling young IT professionals, and it was my frustration that it costed a lot of money and that the effect of it was not measurable at all. It was kind of a black box training. You put a lot of money in it, you hire trainers, and then you put people in a classroom, and then you expect that the skills and the knowledge will be transferred to the work floor. But there's nothing tangible there. It's just a black box. And this put me on the path to learn and read more about the science of learning, about brain science, and evidence-based methods for learning. And we already know a lot about how learning occurs, how people learn, how the brain functions, but it's not applied yet in professional training, and it's also not applied within universities and in education. And I think if we want to solve this skills gap that is already there, but it will only grow exponentially in the next coming years, then we will have to look at evidence-based learning and implement that in our training programs. And that's exactly what Stellar Labs is doing. Yeah, we have developed a methodology based on how people learn. With the learner, it's learner-centered, and it's also based on the latest insights of cognitive science and neuroscience to make this learning process much more effective and combinable with working.
Fantastic.
So that's what we're doing, Claire.
And so, okay, so here's a question. Within this methodology, and I'm so pleased to hear this, because I'm in exactly the same boat in terms of making sure that what is learned is implemented back in the workplace. That's how I would measure my success. It's not what happens on the day. It's nice. It boosts your ego to say it was a great experience, but the real measure is in the changes that happen back in the workplace.
Absolutely. Yes.
So in going back to our core theme of intuition, are there ways that you can help your learners to use and develop their intuition in the learning process?
Very good question. Yes, I think so. Depends on, you can train self-awareness, you can train resilience, you can train all that. But you have to develop a good program to do that. And it cannot be taught just online. And with online, I mean self-paced, asynchronous training, as we say. It has to be in relation to somebody live. But it can be done online as well. Coaching, I've done a lot of coaching sessions online. It works perfectly. But I think you need somebody who can help you asking the right questions, helping you reflect, giving you things back from his or her experience. That process is very crucial, and it's also part of our methodology. I don't believe in online learning as such to have a good learning transfer. When people are we know when people have to do it all by themselves, the motivation is very low, and they usually don't go all the way to the end. And then we don't know what they really transfer to the work floor. So I think there's some personal guidance is necessary there by facilitators, expert mentors, whatever you want to call it. I think that's a crucial element in a learning process, that you have somebody there or a group there, and possibly together peer support and support from an expert mentor, let's say.
You're absolutely right, and it's changing the whole engagement process, I think, with between us and organizations, that we, for example, I now insist on working through with someone what is it that you really want this to deliver. Let's create this together, so that they have accountability in it as well. And it's about what's this going to look like? How is this going to be different for you? Because just to tick a box to say that you've done the training, or that online learning is a lot easier because people can do it in their own time, that's great that they can do it in their own time. But if it's not delivering the outcomes that you need to make the change for the business, then you might as well just throw your money in the river.
Exactly. I totally agree. And I think it's also part of, for companies providing training, they understand that it's important, but it's much cheaper if you can just buy a license on an online platform and say to your people, listen, now you have a license. You can learn whatever you want, whenever you want, in your own time. It's easy, but when you look at the results, they're very, very poor. And then even the money that you put in these online trainings, they're mostly down the drain. And I saw it happen as well with my previous company. We gave everybody a license on technical. Well, it was a very good one with a very good reputation. People didn't do it because they didn't like it. And watching a video or listening to content is not learning. And that's something that L&D people really have to understand, that learning is a process. It's not an event, and it doesn't happen in itself. It's not something that goes automatically. When you watch a video, you can be informed, but it doesn't mean that you will be able to apply it. And that's the main thing. That's the core of learning, that you'll be able to apply it in the context where you're working.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're sort of coming full circle now in that such a core part of that learning experience is the process of reflection, which in turn facilitates that self-awareness, which in turn develops intuition. and so what one of the questions, again, I'm making an assumption here in the way that I'm phrasing the question, but in my experience, there's still a bit of a hesitation or a blocker for some leaders to really embrace intuition as a critical part of decision making or an essential part of leadership. And especially what you said, given, what we're moving into now in this huge period of uncertainty. What is it, Raf, that you think stops some leaders from really just running with that and embracing it and giving it a go?
I think it's quite simple, because intuition is not always right. And intuition can also be misleading, because, let's face it, we are all biased. And intuition doesn't always speak that strongly. And so I would say that because of that, some leaders might have taken wrong decisions and concluded that intuition is not the right guide to listen to. But I think that's because they didn't went far enough with it. I think you should combine it and balance it with data and with other information. And it's kind of going back and forth between your intuition and the information that you get from different sources around you. And then it will become clearer and clearer, and it will, at a certain point in time, you just know that this is the way to go. But you have to go all the way. You don't have to stop in the middle, and you don't have to say, I'm not listening to my intuition anymore. I will just focus on all the data that I have and then take a decision, because that's also not right. I think it has to be a balance. Like most things in life need to be balanced out. And I think intuition is important and it has to be valued for what it is. I see it as an important influencer, but not as the truth in itself. It's a combination of the two things, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good point. And so when you're in this exciting startup, there's so many new things happening. With the teams that you're working with, are they full of new ideas? How are you working with all the sort of new ideas and innovation in the process of building your services and working with your team?
I think, we have a fantastic team, and we have a core team of 6 people. But besides that, we have a fantastic advisory board with very experienced and knowledgeable people from the L&D sector, but also from other areas, like people with a specialization in scale-ups, incubators, and so on. So I think it's important that you have around this startup, you should have people with who can advise you, where you can ask questions, and like I said, to gather data to make better decisions, combined with your intuition. So we're just very lucky to have a fantastic bunch of people around us who are very passionate as well about what we're doing, and who are almost freely there to help us. And it's amazing, and it's fantastic. And I would also advise that for all startups to gather people around you who can help you.
Yeah, it keeps coming back to balance, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's one of the sources I rely on to get more information to take specific decisions. Like we now past let's say 4 or 5 weeks, we're in the process of shifting with not our business model, but our focus area. And so we talked to a lot of people. I think we spoke to at least 10 different people and asked for their advice and their insights. And all of them brought something to the table. And it's like pieces of a puzzle that you put together, and you put them all on the table. And then from there on, you have also your intuition. I can also count on a strong intuition of Stella and of the rest of the team. And then we put all the parts together. And then usually, you see much clearer where you have to go.
Okay, here's something then. So, and it may never have happened, but I'm just thinking that, say that, so you and Stella are working together, and you say, I have this really strong gut feeling that we need to go left. And Stella says, I've got this really strong gut feeling that we need to go right.
It happens. It happens a lot.
Your intuition. How do you work through that?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a very important one. That you have to be able to discuss and to defend your position, but also to listen to the other one. And in general, what happens is that we always get out of it. We always find a solution. And usually it's I'm not saying a combination of the both. Sometimes I say, yeah, you're right, because I understand now where you come from. Sometimes she says, yeah, Raf, you're right, because you have different experiences and other expertise than me. And sometimes it's just a combination of the two, but you have to go through the discussions and be open-minded and be ready to listen to the other and really listen, and not always wanting to stick to your own ideas, because that's, I think, a major problem when taking decisions, is that you're biased and you're already convinced of your own truth. But when you can be open and go for it, and sometimes it's these discussions can be quite fierce and quite intense, but it's always when they're always with the best intentions. Like, we want to get forward, and I think this is my way, and Stella says, yeah, but I think like this. And when you're respectful to each other, then it always leads to better outcomes.
Yeah.
Or at least the minimum is that at least the other one will not feel that she or he has to comply with the other one. It's just like, okay, now I see where you come from. I understand why you want this, and yeah, I do agree because of this or because of that. And that's an important one, that you stay on the same level. And sometimes you have to find out where the other one is and try to come together.
Yeah. And something that you said earlier around bias. I'm doing a lot of work on unconscious bias at the moment, and I ran a workshop last week, and we covered 3 different biases. And I said, I ran a poll on the webinar, and I said, which of these 3 biases is most prevalent in your organization? And it was the one that they call experience bias, where people assume that their truth is the absolute truth, that their knowledge is the absolute knowledge. And I think sometimes people can get a little bit, the lines can get a little bit blurry around, I'm making a decision based on my intuition, and I'm making a decision based on my past experience, and I'm not going to let you in, and I'm not going to listen to yours. So I think that's really important, is to be able to discern what really is genuine intuition and what is, I'm just going on based on what I already know, and I'm not going to change my mind.
Yeah, it's an important one, and it's also a difficult one, because the older you get, the more experience you get. Sometimes you really know that this is not the way to go. So because you've been there a few times. But then again, it's still important to also listen to the other person. And if you're still right, when you listen to this person, you have to start and you have to convince the other one with facts and with reasons why, and to make the other one understand where you come from and what your experience was and why your way to go is probably more effective than another way to go. But that's a discussion that you have to do. There's a discussion you have to go through, and that it can only happen when you're open-minded, and that when you have respect for the other person, and that you're able to listen, and not only to try to defend yourself, because that will lead to even more discussions. And you will not get out of it. You will not find a solution, and then the other one will be frustrated, and then will be more defensive the next time that you go into a discussion. So that's a no-go zone for me.
Yeah, I hear you. So, Raf, we're probably coming to the top of the conversation now. So, I wanted to ask you in terms of, and it is a difficult question, but if there was one key message, one key piece of advice, say you've got, emerging leaders, young leaders, and they're like, what is this thing about leading with intuition? If there was one message that you could leave these people with, where they start to think, okay, I'm gonna explore this more, what might that be?
I'm thinking about 2 things. The first one is, I would never take a decision when I don't feel that's right.
Yeah.
Second of all is, you have to take the time to listen to your own intuition, your inner voice, or whatever you want to call it. And when it's not clear, gather more information, talk to people, ask questions, listen to people, and then eventually it will become more clear. And the last one is intuition has to be valued for what it is. It's very important. It's an important influencer, but it's not the truth. And it should be balanced with other sources of information from wherever you can get them. So it shapes this balance between your intuition and with outside sources of information. This will shape your decisions and the direction you have to go to.
Raf, thank you. I have enjoyed the balance of our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Really enjoyed it, Claire.
Yeah, and I really, really wish you well. I'll put the details of Stellar Labs on the show notes from the podcast. So, Raf,
okay.
Stellar Labs on the show notes. And would it be okay if I put your LinkedIn details on there as well so people can connect with you?
Yeah, sure. With pleasure.
Excellent. Well, it is, where are we? It's 6:00 in the evening, my time, 10:00 in the morning, your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
That's right.
And I might find myself a glass of wine.
Enjoy a glass of wine, Claire, and I hope to talk to you soon. Enjoy your evening.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Raf. Go well.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Claire.
Bye-bye.